Welcome to this capsule on sport-specific considerations, the Olympic experience. My name is Dr. Connie Lebrun, and I'm a sport and exercise medicine physician at the Glen Sather Sports Medicine Clinic at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I'm very fortunate to have competed in the Olympic Games myself in 1976 in volleyball in Montreal. Since then, I've been the team physician with the Canadian Health and Science team at 4 Summer Olympics and 3 Winter Olympics, as well as a number of other international competitions. In this presentation, I will discuss specific considerations regarding concussion at the Olympic Games and similar multi-sport games, relate what is currently known about concussion at this elite level to the more developmental levels of sport and physical activity, and provide some resources that will help guide you in your understanding of sport-related concussion in a variety of sports and settings. The Olympic motto of Citius, Altius, Fortius, faster, stronger, higher, is a noble aspiration, but participation in sport at such an elite level can come with risks and injuries, including concussion, during training and competition. First of all, you might wonder, what do concussions at the Olympics have to do with me, my sport, my team, my students, my children? Well, if we look at epidemiological studies, they help evaluate risk factors, including level of play from youth to elite. They allow athletes and parents and coaches to make informed decisions about risks in specific sports, and they provide governing bodies with evidence-based guidelines to direct injury prevention programs that may decrease injury rates and improve player welfare. Since the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games, the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC, and some of the other international sport governing bodies have been conducting injury surveillance studies for multi-sport events. At the 2008 Summer Olympics, for example, there was an overall injury rate of 10%. At the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver, this system was expanded to include illnesses as well. In that Olympics, there were 20 concussions. It was 7% of all injuries. You will be able to see the links to these papers in the Additional Resources tab. Because the methodology and terminology in these research studies is consistent, it's possible to compare injury and illness rates from games to games, and also to see if changes in the rules or equipment have had any impact. As new disciplines and sports are added, we are also able to get information on them. And there have been similar surveillance studies done on the Paralympic events and games. Although athletes in any sport can incur a concussion, certain sports and Olympic disciplines are at higher risk. In the winter sports, concussions occur mainly as a result of falls, either from a height or at high speed, and contact with the ground or other objects. In addition, there can be contact, intentional or not, with other players. So high-risk Olympic sports would be alpine skiing, freestyle skiing, ski jumping, snowboard, speed skating, short and long track, figure skating, ice hockey, bobsleigh, skeleton, and luge. The addition of slopestyle in Sochi 2014 and big air in Pyeongchang 2018 to the snowboard events have increased the height and velocity that the athletes reach, thereby increasing injury risk. In some Olympic summer sports, particularly the martial arts, the sport is designed to take down the opponent, so the risk of concussion is high. So some of the high-risk Olympic summer sports are boxing, wrestling, football or soccer, rugby, basketball, cycling, track, road, BMX, and mountain biking, equestrian, field hockey, gymnastics, trampoline, handball, judo, synchronized swimming, taekwondo, volleyball, water polo, diving, and athletics, particularly the pole vault. In others, there's unintended contact with a hard ball or other objects. Concussions can be caused by rough play as well, so rules and equipment are critical. In the parasports, it may be more difficult to detect concussions, and they may take longer to resolve. Some of the clinical testing that's currently used must be modified to take into account the disability of the athlete. For example, a blind athlete or an amputee or an athlete with cerebral palsy. High-risk winter Paralympic sports are para-alpine, para-snowboard, and sledge hockey. In some parasports, there's a lot of physical contact, which can certainly lead to concussions. As another example, in para-alpine skiing, this blind skier on the left hurtles down the race course following auditory cues from the guide skier on the right through a headset. An additional challenge is that athletes with a physical disability do not necessarily view concussion as important and significant enough to report to the medical staff or coach. They have more serious issues such as impaired vision or a spinal cord injury or loss of limb. High-risk Paralympic summer sports include paracycling, para-equestrian, judo, sitting volleyball, soccer 7-a-side, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, goalball, and wheelchair athletics. In a sport such as sitting volleyball, players cannot easily move out of the way of a served or spiked volleyball. Concussions can also occur as a result of crashes in wheelchair events, even if there's no particular risk of concussion in that sport otherwise. Elite athletes who sustain a concussion should be assessed as soon as possible at the field of play and then in the medical clinic by a trained athletic therapist, a physiotherapist, and definitely by a medical doctor. They will follow the same graduated return to play and return to school strategies that have already been discussed. Athletes cannot be cleared to return to training or competition by paramedical staff or team coaches. The risk of injury to the musculoskeletal system is significantly higher for athletes who sustain a sport-related concussion in the subsequent 3, 6, and 12 months following their concussive injury. The athlete who's recovered from concussion must be informed of the risks involved in continuing in a high-risk sport. Preventative risk reduction strategies should be reviewed, and the athlete must sign an informed consent. Athletes may require referral to a specialist in concussion or to a third-party independent assessor in cases where the athlete suffers persistent symptoms, including persistent symptom recurrence with exertion, or athletes who suffer multiple concussions over time, or where repeat concussions occur with progressively less impact force. The team physician will make the ultimate decision about return to sport. The athlete is normally required to sign a letter of informed consent acknowledging the risks. Most high-risk sports in both summer and winter sports will have a sport-specific protocol for concussion management. These can usually be found on their respective websites, and we've given you an example. And they can easily be adapted to a provincial or local level. This will be discussed further in the section on Canadian National Harmonization Process. Here's another document from the Canadian Olympic and Paralympic Sport Institute Network. This covers sport-related concussion guidelines for Canadian national and national development high-performance athletes. And this was recently written. There's a lot of information in it for you, and this will be in your resources as well. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with a few key messages. Concussions can occur in any sport at any level of competition, but some sports and activities have a higher intrinsic risk. Any athlete who sustains a concussion should be assessed and managed in a similar manner, regardless of the competition level. Information that's been gathered at major games and competitions can help to inform preventative strategies for competition and games at all levels of play. Thank you very much for your attention.